Hello and welcome back to Devil's Gambit. We will be continuing where we left off, which, if you recall, is after finding out that our little Cadgan is apparently Ranzkai. Or I suppose it's better to say that they're both one and the same, that they're sharing a body, and that they're, I guess, sort of like brothers in a way. Um, yeah. But also, we found out that it appears that Ranzkai's mm, feelings and emotions are built upon Cadgan's, but in the way where it's like Cadgan doesn't really feel certain things anymore because Ranzkai is the one that's feeling them now. And in the same way, whatever Ranzkai is feeling tends to overwhelm Cadgan. At least that's what I interpreted from the previous update. But yeah, so we're about to see more of this whole little Cadgan Ranzkai sort of thing that they have going on. Anyway, so yeah, it's gonna be some shenanigans between Hector and the two of them. But yeah, anyways, so what else? Previously, I forgot his name. The dragon hybrid had arrived and is trying to investigate what's going on. So that's one of the active, I guess you could call it threats. There's a possibility that the dark god is spreading its influence through certain means, and we may or may not delve into that right now. But yeah, so anywho, so yeah, without further ado, let us continue Devil's Gambit. Act 2, Chapter 8, A Forgotten Dream. This morning, I had been waiting by the stables when a carriage emerged from the forest. The guard sitting at the front next to the coachman asked me my name and invited me in. But this wasn't a humble carriage with mere splinter-free wooden seats. No, the seats were cushioned, the floor carpeted, and the door and the walls lined with soft, silky pads. And here I am sitting alone. When I look away from the window, Dad is not here taking notes in his diary, ready to chastise me. For once, I think that might be for the best. Knowing what I do, I don't think that I'd recognize him. Or at the very least, I'd ask myself what kind of man he is. Despite spending so much of my life alongside of him, striving to just be like him, now I feel like I don't know anything that matters. Besides him caring about Oblin, of course, that's all that I know for certain. Being all by myself, with no one to nag me, I just sigh and let my left temple rest on the glass as the endless, unchanging trees pass by. Their branches are locked in a greeting, or perhaps they are reaching towards me. Soon the Duke's mansion shows itself, and a few minutes later the guard escorts me inside. I shoot the flowers a glance on the way inside. It's such a shame that they got rid of the tulips, for I suppose Manuel nor his father were particularly attached to them. Welcome, dear guest. Ricardo? The line doesn't miss a step with the servant persona. It's a bit strange not even being acknowledged, but I suppose that is his job. I hope that the ride was pleasant. I'll be your museum guide today. His Grace will be joining us soon, of course. Now, let us go upstairs. Ricardo dismisses the guard with a wave of his hand and climbs the stairs. I'm left dazed for a moment, but quickly I catch up. Once we're up, he looks back at the floor below, and once he sees that we are alone, adopts the fishy but confident tone that I am more used to. Well, well, what a surprise. I wasn't expecting to see you today. Me neither. Why's that? I work here. I don't know. We never stumbled upon each other before, I guess. A low hum fills my ears. The mansion feels empty besides the two of us, and a chemical stench that clings to the air. Beyond the chemicals, however, there's that almost sweet scent that's typical of lions, and it's not just Ricardo's. Somewhere below us there must be more servants. Perhaps they are dusting the countless bookshelves and cabinets that line the mansion's walls, or they might be working in the kitchen planning tonight's dinner. And that's not mentioning the guards. Ricardo clears his throat. What's up with you? Oh, well, you're not really here for the museum, are you? No offense, but you don't seem like the kind of person to be interested in such things. Oh, if only I wasn't so easy to read. Come to think of it, the Duke is the only one that never seems to catch up to what I'm thinking. It's no surprise. Why would that man have any interest in what's going on through my head? Right. I was hoping that I'd have a chance to look around the mansion. Why? I'm looking for something, but to be honest, I'm not sure what it is yet. Ricardo raises an eyebrow, and all I can do is scratch my head. Then realization hits me. You met Cadgan here when he was a child, right? How long ago was that? For the first time, a new feeling reaches me through the line's smug facade. Discomfort, like he's a little too hot in his shirt. How odd. The Inquisitor asked me the same thing the last time that he visited. He was here? He stopped by a couple of times, mostly to talk with the Duke, but recently I've earned his attention somehow. In these situations, it's easy to assume the worst, so naturally I figure Silvereth had been interrogating Ricardo due to his relationship with Cadgan. However, even if we're talking about an Inquisitor, I can't imagine how he'd have learned about Ricardo, one of Manuel's esteemed personal servants, having ties with a humble Renanian wolf. Not unless Cadgan told him, but why would he do that? Then perhaps he was interested in the same thing that I am, the fact that Ricardo had been here 9 years ago or possibly longer. But why? How does asking about the past bring him any closer to Ranzkai? You look like you saw a ghost. I'm just surprised. The Inquisitor also came to me with the strangest questions just a few days ago. I take a deep breath and look beyond the lion. And the Duke? He's entertaining himself with one of his little models as we speak. Ricardo lowers his voice. I'm supposed to inform him of your arrival, but if you're looking for something, now is your chance. He can be immersed working in the model for hours, but he is expecting you to arrive any time now. If we wander around for too long, he might throw a fit and come out to complain to the guards. Let's say that we have 20 minutes at most. Perhaps running into Ricardo today was a stroke of good luck. We don't have much time, but I wasn't expecting to be able to explore the mansion away from Manuel's piercing gaze at all. This is already going to be better than I imagined. Not to mention that I shouldn't look as surprised as he's with me. If I got stopped and questioned by a guard while snooping around all on my own, I don't know what I'd do besides break down and cry. And besides, I'm curious about what Silvereth wanted with him. You say you don't know what you're searching for yet, but do you at least know where to start? This started with those crates that Manuel donated to the hospital, so the best place to visit in the time that we have should be where all of those items originally were. Do you happen to know where Leopoldino's laboratory was? Could you take me there? That'd be difficult. Ever since Manuel renovated that place, he forbade everyone but a few handpicked guards from entering it, and of course, he always has somebody stationed there. Is there nothing that we can do to gain access? No, I could take you to the door, but we won't be able to go inside. I suppose that'll have to do. Lead the way. We head back downstairs, and then, to my surprise, we take a familiar turn into the east hallway. These last 2 months have been a struggle to process how different everything has become, but we quietly advance into the hallway. I'm overcome by nostalgia. I stop in my tracks and look back, towards a specific door, the same one Cadgan peeked out from all those years ago. That vase, the door, the armor, and even the streaks of sunlight painting the walls orange. Everything is as I remember it. That one scene had been preserved in time until now. Is something the matter? I was just remembering the old times. Ricardo looks over my shoulder, and with a nod, we move on. Soon we reach the end of the hallway. And as I do, the illusion of this place being suspended in time is shattered. Where there was once a turn leading into another part of the mansion is now a large set of doors. The wood alone appears more robust than anything else in the mansion. It's from a dragon rock tree, a species named after its sheer durability. And then there is a lock, large and heavy to match. A glance is all that one needs to surmise how much Manuel wants to keep out any undesired guests. I wonder if he reinforced the windows too. If not, a rock or two should do the job. Leopoldino's laboratory used to be a few rooms down this hallway. A year ago, Manuel decided to renovate it and turn this whole part of the mansion into his research wing, by his own words. What does he even do there? I'm not sure, but shortly after his arrival, carriage after carriage began arriving with the strangest of things, and all of them went in there. An operating table, skeletons, those creepy models made out of something like tar. Models? Models of what? I think it was either of the nerves or perhaps of the circulatory system. I wasn't enticed to ask, you see. It was nauseating. Ricardo grins, but once again, he seems uncomfortable. His smile doesn't quite reach his eyes. In fact, he's looked that way ever since he mentioned the Inquisitor. What they talked about must be bothering him, but I'm not sure that's all. When he caught me reminiscing a moment ago, he also stared at the door, but the look in his eyes was like he was searching for a snake in a tall patch of grass. Naturally, it doesn't escape him that I've noticed something is up, but he waits for me to ask the first question. I'm not sure where to begin, so I just ask the first thing that comes to mind. What did the Inquisitor ask you about? At first, he just made small talk, told me a little about himself. About how he was raised on an island, most likely, and the endless days of sitting on the shore daydreaming about everything beyond the sea as a warm, tropical wind cradled him. And in return, I told him a little about myself. To be honest, I was hesitant to do so. The whole affair smelled fishy. How come? I was in my room inspecting old boar statues Manuel procured from the market back home when suddenly a guard knocked on my door. He told me my presence was needed in the study. So far so good. Sometimes Manuel wants to ask me about some artifact or show me something, or inform me of some change in his museum. But then, when I arrived at the study, there was no Manuel in sight, only a massive dragon with as much, if not more, presence in Cadgan. Understandably, I was a little on edge. Showing up when you least expect it seems to be one of his favorite tricks. I take it he pulled a fast one on you two, But I digress. I had nothing to hide, so I indulged him. I was in the middle of talking about my job when he finally asked his first question. How long had I been working here? I've been wondering the same. You were here as a child, weren't you? My family and the Dukes have done business for generations, so yes, even as a child I spent a great deal of time here learning the ropes from my father. In fact, I feel more at home here than back in the capital. The Inquisitor was very interested in hearing about my times here. Come to think of it, I wonder if that isn't why he approached you two. You were pretty much in the same situation, weren't you? It's possible. I didn't understand what he meant very well, but he suspects that the haze leaf that appeared recently could be related to something that happened in the mansion long ago when Leopoldino returned from his expedition to the valley. Truly? Were you here back then? That was 12 years ago, so yes. Cadgan arrived at the mansion shortly after the expedition started, so that's when we first met. Now, let me put your mind at ease. He didn't seem all that interested in Cadgan. When I told him this, he just nodded and moved on to the next question. Then, what did he want to know specifically? The lion rubs his chin and looks away, or rather, he stares at one of the doors behind us. I follow him as he walks back, stopping in front of one specific room. Ricardo reaches for the doorknob and then stops. He glances my way with an indecipherable gleam in his eyes, swallowing saliva. I steel myself for what might be awaiting on the other side, and then he pushes the door open. But there's nothing out of the ordinary. It is but another vacant bedroom, one of the many ghost rooms in the mansion. Ricardo, however, isn't glancing at what I am. No, he is looking somewhere far away, far in the past. Its light is weak. It has faded with the years, and it might as well have gone out had it not been for Silveret's meddling. but I do catch a glimpse of it reflected off the lion's iris. He kept asking the same thing, with different words from different angles, if something unusual had happened in the mansion back then. It's a difficult question. Between the expedition and the wolves the Duke brought from town, strange as all that period was. Right. Cadgan wasn't the only one Leopoldino brought from town, right? Correct. Although he was the first one to arrive, the others came after the expedition finished. In any case, the Inquisitor's digging did help me uncover a memory that I'd forgotten. Did it have to do with this place? It happened a few days after Leopoldino brought in the townspeople. He confided them to the rooms in the hallway, you see. Then one night, I dreamed of this place. In the dream, it was dark. I was wandering around the mansion, trying to get back to my room. No matter how many turns I took, I couldn't find my way. Then all of a sudden, through the rain's pitter-patter, I heard a moan. A painful one, as if somebody was injured and trying to call for help. I followed it to the same door. I think I picked the lock and then I went in. I don't know how it is for badgers, but we lions see exceptionally well in the dark. But even then, the room's interior was pitch black. I couldn't discern anything but the raindrops hitting the window. Then there was the moan again. It sent a shiver down my spine because I noticed that it wasn't just one voice. It was as if multiple people were crying out in perfect synchrony. I was paralyzed with indecision. My sense of duty told me that I shouldn't turn a blind eye to somebody in need of help. But I was scared. I wanted to run away. So, in the end, I didn't move from the doorway. Until the sky roared and the thunder illuminated the room. It lasted a split second, but it was enough to see it. Huddled up in the corner was a wolf. He was sitting down, his knees to his chest, grabbing his face. And through his fingers were 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know how many eyes. They all stared off into nothing, oblivious of their surroundings, and his hands. A second pair of fingers were starting to protrude from his knuckles. When the light faded, I remained paralyzed, questioning if what I'd just seen was the truth, if such a thing was possible. Then there it was again, the moan that was his voice, but also many others. I slammed the door behind me and ran away. That is all I remember. I follow Ricardo's gaze to what must be the corner of the room where that man was. In one of Iernan's books, the one with accounts from the explorers, there was a mention of a beast with countless eyes. However, what Ricardo says he dreamed about was a wolf. Still, that similarity is remarkable. I feel it in my gut. It can't just be a coincidence. Now, let me be clear. I didn't think the Inquisitor would be interested in a mere childhood nightmare, but I did tell him all of this, and here is my reason. For the next few days, I couldn't bring myself to even gaze towards this hallway, but eventually I decided to face my fears and I snuck into this room while nobody was watching. To my surprise, there was nobody here. I'd seen Cadgan around, so I expected that I might run into a wolf here, but that wasn't the case. In fact, later I checked the rest of the rooms, and they were similarly desolate. He pointed to the floor, right next to the bed. Later I asked Father, and he said that they had all been let go a few days ago, all of them except for Cadgan. His father lied, most certainly. Instead, around there was... The wood on the floor looked wrong. Wrong how? Don't laugh, but when I saw it, I thought that it was still dreaming. A small sapling with 5 branches and purple leaves that had sprouted from there. He shakes his head, chuckling. Ridiculous. After that, we decide to head back upstairs and inform the Duke of my arrival. Just as Ricardo had said, he'd been enthusiastically slashing away at another anatomical model. It didn't look to me as if he was in a hurry for me to arrive, though. I'd wager he'd been at it for hours had we not interrupted him. Not that it matters. I feel that it had been pointless. The museum, just as I had suspected, is just a little cabinet of curiosities. Inside is a rhyton, some broken pieces of what seems to be pottery, a medallion with woven runes engraved in it, and what seems like a stake. Besides the cabinet mounted on a pedestal is what appears to be a large piece of glass, with the room somehow engraved in its transparent interior. Apparently, this one Leopoldino recovered from the heart of the valley itself. It does interest me a little, but only because the rune and the stake both appear familiar, and I can't help but be fascinated by the cube. When Ricardo stops talking about the pottery, I point at the rune and ask, "What is the story behind this one?" The Duke breaks out of his stupor, seemingly interested in my question. "Ah, yes. Good observation, my friend. Although this may appear a common woven room, there is, in reality, quite a mystery behind it. Ricardo?" I wish Manuel would stop calling me that. "Yes. This rune is engraved in many tall walls around the valley. A long time ago, a group of dragon soldiers was exterminated in their attempt to penetrate the valley's depths. Some of them attempted to flee back to Ranzkai only to perish on the way. However, they did get close enough for the locals to discover their bodies later. Both this medallion and a journal were in their possession." This sounds familiar. The journal was damaged beyond legibility. However, this rune was drawn in some of the few remaining pages. Why was this? Did the dragons think that it was of some significance? There are a few theories. Despite Ricardo's best attempts at entertaining me, it doesn't hold my attention for long. It turns out that my thoughts still dwell in what the lion told me minutes ago. According to him, Silver Earth listened to his story intently, but once he finished, the dragon simply nodded and moved to some other innocuous question. Ricardo took that as him being disappointed that his story didn't tell Silver Earth what he wanted to hear, but I think that it's the opposite. He got exactly what he wanted from that. After all, now I too know that Ranai's dark god can cause life to sprout from where you least expected. I hadn't given Silver Earth much credit, perhaps because I can't stand the idea of him reaching Ranzkai, but I must admit that he might be onto something. He's mistaken about Leopoldino having a deal with Ranzkai. This much I am sure of. But comparing Ricardo's story with what I already knew, the presence of the Dark God's influence in this mansion is undeniable. Sure, he says that part of the wolf with many eyes was a dream, but I'm not so sure. If the wolves have been disfigured in a way that betrayed corruption from the Dark God, it makes sense that Leopoldino would murder them and dispose of the bodies. Otherwise, he'd have the Inquisition knocking on his door in no time. Could it be that one of the artifacts that he brought back from the valley caused this? But how does this relate to Cadgan and the cyclical lethargy? And come to think of it, seeing how much trouble Ranzkai is giving Manuel, how did Leopoldino reach the heart of the valley? What did he do right where his son has failed? In the end, I can't make heads or tails of any of this. All these questions lead me by the nose, and before I realize it, I'm dizzy from running in circles. As I make my way back to the exit, I shoot the east hallway a last glance. Little by little, I slow down until I stop 6 steps away from the lower floor. Down to the east hallway, one of the doors is open ajar. Right, we were in such a hurry that it slipped my mind to close it behind me. However, what catches my attention is a silhouette peeking from behind the door. Long, pointy ears, a thin snout. A wolf, I think. But just as quickly as I noticed it, the shade crumbles and, like pollen blown away by the breeze, fades away. Yes, it fades away. Act 2, Chapter 9. Atop the Mountain. Before I realize it, I have developed a habit of staring at the window for a few minutes before falling asleep. During the days of the expedition, it'd be but a passing glance, a reminder that he's out there, plotting and sabotaging, but too busy to stop by and say hi. But once the valley repelled the wolves once more, forcing Manuel to admit defeat through gritted teeth, those glances became longer and longer. I've changed. Perhaps I am a little bit more devilish, but after munching on that thought for a few days, I realize that it's much more simpler than that. Now I know what it's like for another man to embrace me like I mean the world to him, and to bask in his warmth, his scent, and to push my ears against his chest and feel his heartbeat. And I miss it. Damn that foolish expedition for depriving me of all of this. I can't wait for Ranzkai to show up and love me again, so I stare at the pitch black night behind the glass. I never remember exactly how long I spent doing that before falling asleep, but tonight, just as my tired eyelids begin closing, a pebble hits the glass. My heart skips a beat. He's here. But once I'm out of the tavern, I don't see the usual red trail leading to the forest. It takes me an instant to catch up as to why, though he must be worried about the Inquisitor. I don't imagine Silvereth is out making rounds at this hour. At least I hope not. But with him in town, you can't be too careful. All it takes is one more restless person looking out the window at the wrong time, and later reporting that to the Inquisitor. Me being a sitting duck here probably isn't a good idea either. I hurry into the forest, and once I reach the usual spot, the Devil of Ranai reveals himself by tackling me into a hug. He squeezes all the air out of my lungs in a second. Badger, at long last. I had started thinking that we might never see each other again. A weak whine is all that I managed to produce. On top of the Duke, now there's that nosy Inquisitor in town, turning every stone and searching every nook and cranny for me. Ah, but not even that hard-skilled fool can stop me from reaching you. The demon puts me down, and his hands land on my shoulders. I barely don't fall to my knees. What shall we do tonight? How about, I know. There's this place near Old Renai, from where you can get a fascinating view of the valley. Let us head there. He's so excited. Maybe I shouldn't, but I am surprised that he's been looking forward to this day so much. But I'm glad that I wasn't the only one. Sure, that sounds interesting. Will it? It won't take long. I know a quick route there. Demons and their shortcuts. It must be handy to have such a connection to the forest. I suppose it's similar to how badgers have an easier time finding herbs and such. In our case, though, the blessing manifests through our sense of smell. Could Ranzkai possess a sixth sense to navigate Ranai's land then? Questions, questions. You know, Badger, I never get tired of this. Of luring me into the forest? Indeed, but also. Ranzkai looks at me, his eyes shining like red rubies in the dark. I can follow their every movement as they take in every step that I make, every curve of my body, every crease of my hands. When others look at you, what do you think that they see? That's easy. It's what everyone that I met tells me. A doctor, and a badger, I guess. And why do you guess that is? I blink, slowing down my pace as I think about it. I suppose it's because it's my job, and I'm good at it? But your job isn't everything about you, is it? You're a bundle of earthly needs and emotions, but no one cares to see that. Because a doctor is reliable, but everything else is inconvenient. It's annoying to deal with it, so they ignore it and eventually they teach you to bury it. Isn't that sickening? Isn't it tiring? I see your point, yes. But I suppose most people don't care much for learning about my personal life. Perhaps not. But this isn't about that. It's about what makes you happy. You aren't satisfied being just a doctor, aren't you? You wouldn't have fallen into my claws if you were content just continuing your way of life. You crave more. When we met, Ranzkai did promise me that he'd strip me of everything that defines me, including being a doctor. I'd be lying if I said that didn't entice me to. I love helping people. Seeing my patient's smile of relief is a reward on its own. But every moment that I'm aware that their well-being is in my hands, that my judgment could change their lives for the worse, were it to fail me, is also a burden. Did I truly wish for this life? I don't know. The truth is, I didn't have a choice. Dad would have thrust it into my arms no matter what I did. How can I even imagine following a different path then? So when Ranzkai promised to relieve me of this burden, even if only temporarily, somewhere deep inside of me, I was relieved. With a sigh, I look up. Only a few stars peek at me from beyond the treetops. They are the sole witnesses to this nocturnal life that I've adopted with Ranzkai. A doctor during the day, a demon's plaything at night. It's the same for me. What do you mean? I like being a demon, but this life has grown dull, hiding in shadows while protecting my valley, going to sleep while I'm not needed. It is so boring. All I can do is look at the townsfolk as they live their lives and tell tales about me. In times of peace, they use my legend to get a laugh at the expense of impressionable outsiders. Ah, but come times like this, they resent me. They curse me. They wish the Duke would just get what he wants if it means putting an end to the expeditions. Ungrateful betrayers, ignorant of the valley's true danger. He takes a deep breath, gritting his teeth. And yet, I will never be able to let them know what I feel. The way his ears pointed down, and he drops his shoulders. There is no anger in his words, but instead resignation, one so deep that it approaches despair. One, two, three steps, and I'm hugging him from behind, as he once did for me. I must look ridiculous trying to hold together a demon 2 heads taller than me. Ranzkai cackles, shifting around to reciprocate my hug. Ah, excuse your lord's rambling, Badger. I am quite all right. Are you sure? Quite so. Even if I wasn't, I am not intending to spend tonight in a sour mood. It is a joyous occasion. Now let us continue. We're almost there. We walk hand in hand the rest of the valley. Ranzkai begins humming what I first think is a tune that he came up with, but soon I realize that it's a full song. It keeps us company as we go up a slope, its pitch increasing the higher we go, and finishing just in time for us to rise above the trees. As we look around, I realize that we must be at the base of one of Renai's mountains. How curious! I've never even thought of approaching them until now. To think that they're so easily accessible from the forest. We head a bit higher, rounding the mountain's perimeter until I can see the moonlit ruins below us, the old settlement. Then everything beyond it must be the Eye Valley. The countless stars show themselves in their full glory too, alongside the not quite full moon sitting right above the valley. It's so pretty. Look over there, Badger. Ranzkai calls my attention back to the earth. I missed it at first, but there is a small purple dot in the darkness below. It's faint, and for a moment it seems like it fades away before it suddenly regains its strength. And it's not the only one. Soon I notice another and another. The closer my gaze moves to the center of the valley, the more of them I see. It is a sea of them, or rather, another night sky confined to the valley's basin. Is that Hazeleaf? Clusters of them. Once upon a time, the wolves of Old Ranai would control the spread of Hazeleaf through rites and fire. After centuries of being left unchecked, however, they've grown to surround the heart of the valley. The demon looks around until he finds a trunk lying on the ground. He sits down and with a finger and a sly smile calls me closer. As soon as I sit next to him, he throws an arm over my shoulder, bringing me closer. If demons are the dark god's tendrils, then the haze leaf is its veins and arteries, pumping its influence wherever it reaches. It's beautiful, though, isn't it? Like a crown of light. Indeed, there can be beauty even in what doesn't belong to nature. Like, uh, like you. Ranzkai chuckles, grabbing me in a chokehold. I pretend to wrestle out of his grip, but soon enough I'm leaning against him, taking in his spring-like scent, which is enough to make my pants feel tight. The demon grins at me with contemplation. Well, well, aren't you needy? I bet you've been lonely without me. Say, how many times did you using the loincloth of mine? Hmm? At least 3, 4 times? Did you enjoy the smell? Hmm? Yes, but, it's not the same. I've been craving smelling you all this time. Such a good thrall. However, Runsky stares off towards the wall behind us. My sight isn't as good, but after a moment I notice rough strokes of what smells like a fruit-based tincture forming drawings in the walls. A small wolf with a crooked smile and a broadsword is staring right at me. The village children like coming here. Oh, how awkward. Ranzkai cackles and pats me on the back, nearly pushing me off the log. I do feel a bit bad about leaving you hanging. Ah, if only I could approach you at any time, whether it's day or night, whether others are looking or not. That'd be wonderful. Have you given what we discussed last time any thought? About Cadgan? Well, I lower my head, feeling embarrassed all of a sudden. I've been thinking about asking him out for the Great Lake Games, but I've been dragging my feet. I don't know why. Maybe I'm just afraid that it'll go poorly, like it did with the Haze Leaf Burning Festival, but I don't say that part. Not a bad idea. You can enjoy the games together and spare him from guard duty. Two birds with one stone. When I ask him about that, Cadgan explained that after the competition is over, the townspeople pick up disguises and gather in the forest. There they pretend to be demons hunting for intruders. Last year, some lions took offense at that part of the celebrations and went around breaking the windows while everybody was away, until they ran into the mountain of a wolf. Cadgan mentioned that he isn't expecting any trouble this year, but that he'd make himself useful and be on guard duty just in case. Ranzkai bringing that up all of a sudden when I didn't even hint at it catches me off guard. But of course he knows. He can read minds. I wouldn't want to get in the way of his job, though. I'm sure that I could keep him company and chat while he's making his rounds. Ranzkai falls silent. Then he grabs me by the shoulders and shakes me, making the stars both above and below spin. Are you joking? Would you think if you invite him on a date now, all you'll do is hold hands and watch the games with a smile? Have a little imagination. No, I suppose it won't end there. Truth be told, it'll probably end up in either my room or his cabin. Or maybe even the forest. It's been difficult not to notice the demeanor of the townspeople changing as the games approach. Almost every day I overhear a conversation about what two wolves are plotting to do in the privacy the trees and the night grant them. If that's what Cadgan wants from me, I couldn't be happier, and yet I cannot but hesitate. Ranzkai brings a hand to his chin, pretending to be deep in thought. I have a feeling. Hmm? A feeling that if you don't invite Cadgan on a date, he'll invite you instead. But if you were to gather the courage to invite him yourself, that'd make him really happy. Is that true? He shows me that toothy smile. Absolutely. The tavern's usual bustling feels different today, too muffled and distant. I can't even pick up random words or pieces of a conversation. I open my mouth wide, showing my fangs as I let out a long yawn. I'm tired and sore from last night's hike. We didn't even climb that high. Cadgan drinks his beer in peace, while Teresa keeps talking into my ear, with no regard to how exhausted I look. Try as I may to listen, I've lost the thread a long time ago and resorted to nodding along as she talks. It doesn't take long for her to notice. Are you paying attention, Hector? Yes, yes. It's just I didn't catch that last part. She gives me that side eye. Sure you didn't. Listen up this time, okay? You're pretty smart, yes, and you can make all kinds of elixirs just from what grows from the earth. So my question is, can you do something to prevent babies? I rub my forehead in a useless attempt to sober up. Prevent? It depends on how far along we're talking. There's plenty of herbs that you can use to induce an abortion, although which one is better to use and how safe they are depends on the stage of pregnancy. Back home, we use a flower called violet miri, but other common choices are partition lily and the bell bloom, for example. Here in Renai, there's razorweed everywhere. You need to pluck some, grind it into a dust, and mix it with water and heat it with a slow fire. Now to get the desired effect, you will need to mix it with... Okay, that's useful. I'd appreciate it if you wrote it down on a sheet of paper or something, but I meant for before that. Oh, I see. Well, contraceptives are easy to make too, yes. Is that so? Can you make a bunch of them? Sure. By tomorrow? Right on time for the Great Lake Games, then. How many? She shrugs. As many as you can. Uh, I'll see how much I can make today. Thanks, you're great, Hector. She hops off her seat, pulling me into a hug. You're welcome. I'm a bit shocked by her requests because in Oblon, almost everyone has a nose and hands to put together their own contraceptives. Even if one doesn't dedicate their life to herbalism, the tradition is to teach your son or daughter at least this much as they reach adulthood. But I suppose that even if Teresa knew how to make them, she couldn't do it with the Duke monopolizing all the medical equipment. There aren't even any wolves practicing medicine in the hospital. Manuel must have deemed the wolves too primitive to practice medicine, forbade them from doing so, and confiscated all their equipment. Come to think of it, Grandpa once mentioned the old tyrant of Oblon had made brewing elixirs a privilege for the few, and that even grinding herbs without his permission was harshly punished under his regime. It's almost funny how similar these pretend keens can be when you take a closer look at them. As Teresa returns to her seat, I glance toward Cadgan. He's almost done with breakfast. Much like with the leaf burning festival, he'll be helping with the final preparations for the games. There is a chance that he'll be working until late at night, so if I'm gonna invite him, right now might be my last chance. And yet, as I stare in his eyes and see him bring another spoonful of meat and fruit to his mouth, I'm at a loss for words. What's on your mind? Nothing, I nearly automatically responded. I could smack myself in the head right now. Come on, stop overthinking and just be direct. I was wondering about your plans for the games. Hmm? I tapped the bar's wooden surface with all my fingers. Would you, like to spend the day together? I assumed that we were already going to do that. Until it's time to make my rounds, that is. I know, but I mean, how about we make it a date? Teresa raises an eyebrow and leans closer upon hearing that last word. Cadgan is grinning ever so slightly. A date? Eh? And what will we do differently? Teresa sees what Cadgan is doing, and she has the biggest smile on her face. I'm tempted to tell them to knock it off, but at the same time, I do want to say it. I. I want to spend the whole night with you. Don't go on patrol tonight. Let's do something else. Oh? Like what? Come on, you know what I mean. They both cackle and Cadgan pets my head. His large hand pulls back my skin as he drags it across. I could die happy right now. I do, but it's just fun teasing you. Will you guys be joining us at the amphitheater? Now, we want to tease him, not kill him. What about the amphitheater now? I was not expecting to hear that word today. Teresa put on an evil smile. Don't you know, Hector? That's where people gather to like, in not necessarily. It's just where couples and some adventurous people go to do their business, so as not to disturb the rest. It's just courtesy. He leans closer to make sure only I hear the next part. But I have different plans. The way he whispers that makes my imagination go wild. I want to ask him what he means, dig into every detail of what he has in store for me, but I can't bring myself to do so in front of Teresa. But I'll find out soon enough when I better not to spoil the surprise. Although Teresa is insistent in teasing me, it's almost time for work, and for Cadgan to go help with the preparations. I gobble down the rest of my breakfast and we walk outside. I'm about to say that I'll see them later when I notice Cadgan staring intently at me, the gears in his mind turning as he takes in my image, and then scans the town around us. Bearing two old drunkards hanging in front of the tavern, most villagers must already be at work, either tending to a farm or some business. A few wolves walk down the streets towards the town square, intending to spend the day preparing for the games. A wolf is carrying a basket full of fruit hurries to her home. Cadgan grabs me by the shoulders and we lock eyes. In that split second, I see his intent, and my heart both jumps and readies itself. He pulls me into a kiss, which I receive without a care in the world. It doesn't matter if Teresa is right next to us or how many bystanders might see us. But it only lasts a few seconds. As we separate, Cadgan gives me a reassuring smile. I'll see you later. Yes. Cadgan waves at Teresa and walks off towards the town square. The wolf is giving me a playful punch in the shoulder before she runs off, presumably back home. On the way to the hospital, it finally hits me what he did, and what we're doing tomorrow. I can scarcely believe it. Let's hope that this goes well. Before me is a badger. His eyes are open in shock, and the corners of his mouth ever so slightly twist into a grimace. I can't recognize myself, or rather, I can't process that this face is supposed to be mine. Who is this? What is he so scared of? It could be that a filtering flask doesn't make the best mirror, but still, I am nervous. What if I screw this up or Cadgan gets second thoughts? It'd be best to stop thinking so much. With a sigh, I put down the flask and make my way downstairs. The cook, a somewhat skinny wolf with dark fur, is manning the bar. Orwell had set out to prepare for the competition a few hours ago, but I sort of wish that he was here if only to reassure me that I look all right. Ranzkai would tell me that I look fine, and that I'm overthinking it, or so I hope. I wait by the stairs with my back to the wall. After a few minutes, Cadgan comes in and I wave his way. He approaches me with a smile as he sizes me up. There you are. Excited? Of course. Did you have dinner yet? Not yet. We still have a few minutes before the games, so I was thinking of stopping by the food stands before going there, show you some more traditional Vernanian cooking. Oh, I'd like that. He signals towards the door, as just as I'm walking past them, his heavy hand lands on my shoulder, bringing me closer to him. I feel my face get hotter as we walk out. Much like with the leaf burning festival, the town square is populated with stands for all sorts of games and food. We look around for an interesting place to eat at. What a shame. The Renanian octopus stand didn't open this time either. Renanian... what? Octopus? Yes. How could there be octopi in Renai? There's no sea here. It's not literally an octopi. That's just what we call them. Before I can ask him to elaborate, Cadgan goes, oh, and leads me to a stand run by a chubby wolf. He's serving plates filled with what smells like rolls of stuffed meat. Another couple converses while they casually pierce the rolls with tiny wooden picks, dripping them into different smaller plates with a creamy red sauce before bringing them into their mouths. This is a delicacy. Let me treat you this time. You don't have to. I know, but I want to. To that, I have no rebuttal. We take a seat and Cadgan pays, and we spend the next few minutes watching the chubby wolf cut the meat, stuff it with a mix of herbs and vegetables, and cook it in butter. That smells pretty damn good. What is it? Oh, it's Dusk Viper. Really? I'm surprised he managed to get his hands on enough to open this time. With all that's been happening, obtaining food from the valley has become more and more difficult. We're scraping by as it is. Nobody wants to risk going to the valley to hunt deadly snakes on top of that. Is it okay to eat things from the valley? As long as you cook them well. Well, Silver Earth did purify the amphitheater with fire. Maybe cooking it has the same effect? Soon dinner is served. I pierce one of the Dusk Viper rolls and dip it into the sauce, but I'm hesitant to bring it to my mouth. Cadgan is already digging, though. He plays with his pick by rolling it in between his thumb and then the middle of his index finger while he chews. I take a deep breath and shove the entire roll into my mouth. It's really good. The meat itself doesn't have much flavor, but as I bite into it, the flavor of the filling explodes in my mouth. It's just enough to leave me wanting more. Cadgan smiles as I reach for another one. It's good, isn't it? We used to eat these every year with my family. No wonder. Did they participate in the games? My father did. He was the best archer in town. Maybe that's why the wolves wanted me to participate too. Possibly. I feel the expectation of children following their parents' steps is very common in towns like this. It's the same in Oblin. But we're our own people. Cadgan lowers his gaze and stares into his open hand. In my case, I suppose I should consider myself lucky that I was born the son of a priest. Although... I ask, but I already know what he means. A priest is expected to be able to channel nature through his body. He must be skilled at magic. But Cadgan struggles with exactly that. It's unfair, even when he could have been content with the life that he was born into. Fate denied him that. Every day, I understand nature less. How could our God be this petty and capricious? What did we do to deserve enduring hardship, no matter our desires or actions? Perhaps this indiscriminate misery is just part of it. But to be fair, I am a very good shot, so I do take after my dad in that aspect. He points between his fingers. If you put one of those rolls on top of your head, I could shoot it with an arrow and leave you unscathed. We can take some with us so that I can show you later if you want. I think I'll take your word for it. Suddenly, somebody taps my shoulder and I turn around to be greeted by Teresa's smile. Oh, hey. Hi, you two. I hope you're enjoying yourselves. Cadgan, I'm so proud of that shirt. You look great in it. Thank you. You did a good job, too. Hector, do you have the thing? Of course. I untie a small bag from my belt and hand it to her. She crooks her head with a curiosity as she produces tiny white spheres from inside. What's this? You told me to make as much as possible, but it'd be troublesome transporting lots of vials, so I made them into this shape instead. Just take one and you'll be good for the night. I see. Thank you again, Hector. It's nothing, really. Alright, I don't want to butt into your guys' business now. Enjoy your date and see you later. Sure, see you later. We watch her run off, joining with a wolf that I must assume is her husband. They are walking next to a much larger wolf. Looks like he might be a competitor. Guess she was in a hurry. So, do many people go to the amphitheater every year? Why? Do you want to go there? God, no. I chuckle, but Cadgan still has that contemplative expression. We could do it, but if you're afraid of others seeing us... He drags his chair a little closer, and once again takes me by the shoulder. My heart rate quickens as I feel his breathing hit my ear. How about we leave the games early? We sneak into the forest all by ourselves under everyone's nose. We'll be back before anyone notices. What do you say? I squeeze my legs together, trying to hide my Cadgan's hand making its way down my side to my hip. How possessive he feels does nothing but rile me up further. If I try to talk now, I know my voice will come out as a whimper, so I lock my eyes with him and give him a resolute nod in response. Cadgan chuckles, giving my hip 2 taps before pulling back and reaching out for another dusk viper roll. We pass the town square and go south. As we draw closer to the edge of the town, the air around us begins to tremble. A distant drumming enters my ears, which reminds me of the day of the leaf-burning festival. Soon we reach wide stone steps that go down several meters before ending in an open expanse. A field with nothing but short grass, perfect for the competition, delimited by the stairs leading back to town and the forest that connects it to the town. Beneath us are the competitors, either warming up by running laps around the place or doing stretching exercises. Arwell stands out amongst a crowd of wolves. He looks like a fish out of water, awkwardly following Barry's example as he stretches. Over there, I see Fergus too. Let's sit down. There's a good spot over there. Sure. The drumming suddenly stops. The participants gather and a young, energetic-looking wolf steps forward. I expect him to begin a speech or perhaps to introduce the games, but instead he makes a signal to the drummers on the bottom step and they resume their song. But this time the young wolf's voice joins them, and so do countless others in the crowd. Spectators, participants, everybody joins. Cadgan closes his eyes for a moment and then he sings. I've never heard these lyrics before, and yet they strike me as so familiar. And to the surface I ascend, run I, to find again my lover's firm embrace. But in barbarian arms I see her lie, brought low and raped and ravaged in disgrace. My people hear this demon's shrieking hell, to cast away this lord and lover foul. Not one night more, beloved, shall you cry. Desist your play and cease the pranks infernal. My dearest kin, it's time that we conspire. The wicked's rest must now be made eternal. Return of Ranai's lover, my sole desire. O brother of my soul, branch of our tree, twofold are these, the dire mistake I see. Please listen now to your brother Hibernal. Have you forgot our father's icy ear that's burning still on the ice-stricken mountain? You must remember mother's branding fire so deep in the valley's forgotten fountain. Beloved brother, lend me your branch's strength, and sister, anchor me with your root's length. Before the final fight, I shan't retire. Oh, my beloved sad-eyed mist revived Ranai. This demon will yet return to your side. Your orange light shall grace again my eye, when soon together one last time we stride. All past misdeeds regrets I shall then write, my dearest, for our future ever bright. For you, my misty-eyed Ranai. Amidst the silence that follows, the young wolf clears his throat and begins explaining the competition. For the first three, the participants will be placed in teams, which will be rewarded points depending on their performance. The top 30 participants will participate in a game of hurdling, the result of which will determine who moves to the final event, a wrestling contest. Soon after the explanations, the drumming returns, and the participants begin splitting into teams. Cadgan shifts next to me and our glances meet. He's smiling, probably thinking the same thing as me. What a shame it is that we won't see the games all the way through. When dusk encroaches, Cadgan grabs my hand and pulls me away from the crowd. There are no words. All his lips give me is a smile that I cannot quite place. It is a smile. It is bathed in the firelight from the celebrations, and it is even crowned with a glimmer in his eyes that makes my heart skip a beat. There is a warmth in his hands, want in his grip. But it is somehow melancholy. Just as we dive into the shadows of the forest, leaving behind the roaring and light from the Great Lake Games, I stop. Cadgan, is everything all right? Cadgan stops and looks back at me, but for a moment his focus is elsewhere. His gaze shoots off to the side and his ears twitches, as if searching for something. Quiet. Quiet here. But I can still hear the distant noise from the games, and I'm sure his senses of hearing is keener than mine. He continues before I can ask what he means. From now on we'll have quiet. No more distractions or interruptions. Ranai be damned. Hector, tonight you and I are the only people in this world. His grip tightens on my hand, and I realize how at peace I am right now. What anxiety I feel would more aptly be called anticipation, and more than ever this beast lightens my limbs and makes the fur on the back of my neck stand on end. I wouldn't have it any other way, Cadgan. Perhaps my encounters with Ranzkai have changed me and made me bolder and more shameless, or it could be Cadgan's hand holding onto mine that soothes me. But somehow, I doubt either of those is the reason. This is not a logical feeling. It's almost as if somewhere in my heart I had been preparing myself for this for a long time. Since I returned to Ranai, or perhaps for much longer than that. And how are you feeling, Badger? Being called Badger sends an arrow straight through my heart, and no doubt he notices it. A sharp-toothed smirk spreads through his face. Oh, I'm all right. Just excited, I think. Soon we reach the river, and just as I'm about to turn towards the ruins, Cadgan is pulling me in a different direction. I almost lose my balance, but he stops me from falling. Careful. Sorry, I just remember the ruins being that way. They are, but we are not going there. We will cross the river here, see? This part is shallow. We can walk to the other side. I look down to my boots, and a flash of realization comes to his eyes. Just remember to take off your shoes. Right. But we could always get to the ruins and walk to the other side from there, too. I mean, the river ends right there. Cadgan just looks at me for a moment, with that smile on his face, the same one that I've seen 100 times already. But there is something different this time. For a moment I feel as though I'm getting a glimpse of his old mischievousness, but that's not quite it either. I could tell you, Hector, that I don't want anyone seeing us now. There could be another sneaky couple like us following that path. But... He takes a step forward, not enough to touch me, but so close that the air becomes warm. The truth is, I don't want to walk by the ruins. You trust me, don't you? Even with a serene voice, his mere presence towering over me just an inch too close is enough to make me quiver, before I can think that I'm already nodding along to him. When I give you an order, Badger, you understand that I only want what's best for you, don't you? I want to make your every wish come true. Yes, I understand. So when I give you an order, I'll do it. So, we are going to cross the river now. I don't even try to hide the tent in my pants. We cross the river, with Cadgan's hand covering mine, his claws grazing my skin. I barely notice the cold water up to my shins. After crossing, and as we walk along the river, a breeze passes us by. It's not chilly like usual, but strangely warm. It's almost as if it begins swirling around us, closing in, attempting to push us closer together. Which reminds me, didn't I notice something similar shortly after the leaf burning festival? It's almost like since then the wind has been carrying the leftover embers from the bonfire, infecting the townspeople with the flames, furrow, and excitement, setting a perfect stage for the Great Lake Games. Thinking of it that way, perhaps it was in my imagination, but the haze leaf burning did affect the town. If so... hey, Cadgan. Hmm? I was wondering. The Inquisitor said that the people of Ranai, rather than forgetting their demons, turned them into something else. According to him, you can strip demons of their power that way. Cadgan blinks at me. Hector, for the love of God, we're about to and you're thinking about demons? I can't hold back the blushing. There's something in the air, a kind of warmth. It just got me thinking about the leaf burning festival. I don't know. And somehow you made a leap and connected that to demons. His gaze shifts, but in the darkness of the woods I cannot quite interpret it. All that I can say for sure is that when his voice rings out, the levity that was there a moment before is gone. A demon is an emissary of a god that embodies an idea, one incompatible with nature, and the first step to bringing about their dark god's world is to let that idea be acknowledged. Demons seek souls that will become part of their idea, that will pay respect to it, submit to it. If you bastardize it, turn it into a children's stories and poems, music and dance, tragedies and comedies, that is fighting back against demons, in a way. I wonder if that's the source of our nice traditions. Maybe the leaf burning festival and the Great Lake Games were once demonic rituals that were transformed by the townspeople? Not the townspeople. Legend says that the leaf burning festival began with a demoness. I can tell you the story another time, but to finish answering the question. The moment you bastardize a dark god, nature has already taken root, sublimating the dark god's influence into its own. However, it is a risky gamble. There is much that can go wrong compared to bringing in an army and making the heads of the heretics fly, but it worked out well for Ranai. Cadgan looks past me, and I follow his gaze drifting over the surface of the lake. He's transfixed by the burnt remains of the amphitheater at the side of the still water. I wonder what's on his mind. Is he thinking about Irnin, reliving that moment when the guard pushed him, the second when the haze leaf sap stained his hand? Or perhaps he's thinking that another part of Ranai's history has been desecrated, first by haze leaf and then by the Inquisition's fire. But when I look at him, at the expression etched in his face, what I see is something else. The grief of seeing an injured parent or a defaced monument is an uncomplicated emotion. At most, it might be contaminated with anger towards those responsible, but the emotion that I see in Cadgan is much harder to read. If I didn't know any better, I think that it's some kind of regret. Whether that is the case, he doesn't dwell on it for long. His mind and his gaze drifts elsewhere to me, and I see it in his eyes, in his posture, in the way his fur sways with the breeze. Peace. Freedom. I can almost hear him chuckle as he takes a step forward and reaches for my sides, pulling me closer. Come here. It's surreal, having his eyes fixed on me in such a way, not with cold indifference, not with fear, but with a playful want. He pulls me into a kiss. There is no warning, no formality, because I'm kissing my best friend, the man that I've loved and longed for, who's changed and remained the same. God, He can do as he pleases with me. And when his tongue invades my mouth, all thoughts melt away. I am safe in his company, and Ranai be damned. Tonight we are the only two people in this world. I relax in Cadgan's firm grasp just as much as he does in holding me. I moan and he sighs. He pulls me in and I follow. All the pain, grief, doubt, and fear evaporate from me, and what is left is each sensation imprinting itself on me. His tongue and the hand on my chin set the pace, and by God, I will obey. His canine grazes on my lip, and I am reminded of his wild strength, and in my mind I see him nibbling on my neck as he ruts me from behind. With a playful chuckle, he thrusts his tongue to occupy my mouth, like I was a cherished toy for him to explore and play with, and I can't hold back a moan. He nudges my head sideways so that our muzzles fit together, and I whimper at the thought of being guided to fit his needs and desires. Cadgan is a mountain of a wolf bearing down on me. When he lowers himself to my height, I feel covered and owned, and when he raises himself even a bit, I must stand on my tippy toes to maintain our kiss. His touch on my chin grows tense, and that's my cue. His tongue ravages and claims my mouth. I am his to do as he pleases, and I'll beg for it. And when his touch loosens, it is my turn to worship this man who can reduce me to a whimpering mess with a kiss alone. Cadgan briefly breaks the kiss to look at me, at how dazed and in love I am before getting back to it. This time I muster a reaction. I press my lips harder into his, wishing and begging for him to invade and claim me more. When again we separate, he places his mitt of a hand on my head and pulls me into his chest. I hug him back as I take in his warmth, his heartbeat, and that scent so reminiscent of the forest. It is the sweetest smell in the world, richer than any flower yet more ripe than their fruit, just as unforgettable as my dearest memories. And yet, I feel myself grow nervous. No, impatient rather. As welcoming as his embraces, I can't keep myself still for long, and neither can he, judging by his hand going lower and lower on my back. It comes to rest on my butt, to grope me, to tease me, and I can't hold back any more. Own me, please. Do whatever you want with me. Whatever I want? I can hear him smirk so clearly that, even with my eyes closed, I can picture it. There is something playful in him tonight. He lifts his hand, slow and painful, as if letting go took immense effort, and follows with a sharp smack that cuts through the forest. My pants cushion it, but I whimper nonetheless, not because it hurts, but for how badly I wanted his touch when he lifted his hand, and for how glad I am with its return. Cadgan licks his lips at my reaction, and then gives my behind another stroke or two before smacking it again. This time, a whimper comes out more like a moan. You like that, don't you? Cadgan. Sure, why not? I can't lie to myself, and I can't deceive him. All my desires come out, thirsting for this freedom that I found with him. Don't stop. I love it. Again, I can sense his smirk, and I feel it as he lays another kiss on my lips, tender as our lips meet, demanding as his tongue invades my mouth, and methodical as he raises his hand, leaving me on the edge of anticipation, counting each second as I long for his touch, until I am about to break down and beg for his touch. Only then does his hand come down on my rear, heavier and firmer this time. I don't know what echoes louder in the woods, his mitt of a hand slapping my behind, or the shameless moan escaping from me. It didn't even hurt, not with my pants acting as padding, but it's just strong and loud enough to make me squirm and to show how much control he has over me. And I wanted more. His hand rises again, and this time I squeeze my legs together, feeling my heart throbbing between my thighs. You always liked it when I was rough on you. When his hand crashes on my ass again, I feel my letting out a spurt of and with each subsequent spank, my legs weaken and shake. I lose count of how many times he hits my, but he stops as I start to buck and rub my on his leg. That's when I notice how sopping wet my undergarments have become. Cadgan grabs my feeling the shameful wetness. God, if he had kept going on, I would have lost control. Would I have my on his leg while he spanked and caressed my And the way he handles me, just reaching down and doing as he pleases. He owns me, doesn't he? He doesn't even have to ask, and I love it. God, you're really something. I didn't think that it was possible to get so riled up from being teased like this. But I can't let you just yet. You understand, don't you? I whimper. I do. And just confessing that makes my twitch. He lets go and takes a step back. With one last look at me, he reaches behind his head and allows all his layers to fray at the edges. It all comes undone. With a swift pull, like a knife cutting through a rope, he lets his hair down. He follows it by removing the rings, keeping his braids together. All of the ordered strands of hair, all quiet and cold, gave way to a growing wildness, which only becomes more apparent as he undoes his buttons and takes off his shirt. When his hands reach down to pull his pants, the wind blows and helps fray his braids a bit more. And as the waistline falls, revealing first his and then those virile I long for, I don't know whether to look up to his wild mane or down. I've seen him naked before. This sight should not surprise me, but it never happened like this, with all the layers of propriety pulled back and the clear expectation that we will make love. I don't have to avert my gaze or keep myself under control. I can just enjoy the sight and say whatever comes to mind, and what comes out is, "You had a wild beast hiding underneath the surface all along?" Beneath order, chaos. Beyond nature, demons. I follow along and undress. For a moment I fear that I do not provide a spectacle to him, but the desire in his eyes ends that concern. I hurry for him. I cannot bear the lack of his touch. He wraps me in a warm embrace and I latch onto him. I won't let go. And when boundaries blur, our fur melts together, lakes of black in a continuous ocean of white. All become one. Cadgan's arms tighten around me, and for once I feel as though all is in its rightful place in the world. All the people and their conflicts and all of Ranai's dark secrets are specks of dust floating away, and those long nights that once haunted me with their chill now are a source of comfort. Cadgan's breathing brushes against my ear. He nibbles and licks it after an involuntary twitch, then readies himself and is still buried inside of me. Just as I imagined, Badger. Uh-huh. Our combined fluids seep into our fur, letting in a slight chill from the breeze, but I don't mind. It's the kind of cold that invigorates, that makes all the warmth preceding it more precious. I'm almost falling asleep, but Cadgan's little affections rubbing my tummy, nuzzling the back of my neck, holding me tighter, keep me at the edge of consciousness. Without thinking, words flow from my mouth. I love you, Cadgan. I love you too, Hector. Just tonight, I'm sure that I can breathe free. Cadgan is here to keep me in place and pull me back together. And I'm here for him. I think that I understand him now. I can almost see the future ahead of us, bright and clear. Maybe it's just like the song said, perhaps very soon. All past misdeeds, regrets, I shall then right. Obviously, I couldn't show you that whole portion where they canoodle. Um, you only got to see the part leading up to it, but like not to not the canoodling itself. Um, but yeah, I kind of get the feeling that Ranzkai was sort of not piloting Cadgan, but was sort of like egging him on in a way. In the way it's like, okay, do this, okay, do that, and say these things, and like put it in now. um, because he was acting a little bit more Run Sky and a little less Cadgan. But then again, like I said, both of them are uh, they're they're one and the same, I guess. And it was kind of obvious too, like specifically where we know that Cadgan and Ranzkai were talking about either Cadgan, actually, yeah, about Cadgan inviting Hector to the Great Lake Games and then, doing stuff. But I don't remember if Cadgan was like, well, okay, maybe I might, maybe I not, maybe I won't. But then when Ranzkai shows up to Hector, he's like, okay, you gotta ask him, dude. And then Hector's like, oh, well, I don't know. And it's like, no, oh my God, you guys, just ask. He's playing matchmaker, I guess, for his bro, his other side. I guess it's more like they're brothers and less like they're brothers, but they're also separate beings that inhabit the same body. I don't know. It's weird. Anywho, aside from that though, the the whole little thing where Ricardo had a nightmare where he saw a wolf in a room and then he went to investigate that room and then saw that there was haze leaf growing. My assumption is that anyone that is involved with the Eye Valley is somehow getting connected or tainted or spreading the taint from the Eye Valley around Ranai now. And that includes Cadgan and Ranzkai, or maybe just Ranzkai for the moment. That anything that he really does, it's probably gonna like leak and start growing haze leaf, which, as Ranzkai said, it's sort of like the veins and the arteries of like the demon, the old god, the black god or whatever it's called. And so I wonder what the whole thing is between Cadgan and Ranzkai, where is one supposed to keep the old valley in check while the other one spreads it? Because it kind of seems like that is what's happening. Um oh, I had a thought. What was it? Um oh, the whole thing where the expedition right after the expedition Manuel no not Manuelino, Leopoldino brought in the young Cadgan. And if we think about this right, I wonder if young Cadgan was already aware that Ranzkai was tied to him, or if at that time Ranzkai was tied to him. And I wonder if what really happened isn't so much that Ranzkai appeared by himself alone. What actually happened is that both of them appear at the same time. Because even though Cadgan is saying that he has a father and a mother, I wonder if they were actually his parents. Mm. If not that, then I wonder if around that same time Cadgan went to the Eye Valley with someone, maybe like snuck off. Like he was saying that um, kids tend to like to linger around the areas, the perimeter of the Eye Valley that overlooks the valley. And I wonder if Cadgan, being the little rambunctious little wolf that he was in the past, decided to go into the valley, and he was found by Ranzkai, who ended up, I guess, possessing him in a way, either knowingly or unknowingly, which caused the cyclical lethargy, which was, his illness. And then when Leopoldino came out of the valley after his expedition, maybe he found Cadgan and realized that there was something going on. And then he also ended up finding some of the wolves or whatever. I forget if he went with wolves or what. But that is my theory so far. At least one of my theories. My visual novel game theory. What else? I would have. I hope that in the next update we'll hear who won the games. That'd be funny if Arwell won. But yeah. Anywho, so yeah, write down in the comments what you think so far, and thank you all for watching / listening. If you would like to play Devil's Gambit yourself, you can do so by going down into the link in the description, which will have a direct link for the itch.io page where you can download the game and play it yourself, or just go to itch.io.com and download it from there. They do have a Patreon in case you want to support the project, which should net you early access to builds of Devil's Gambit. And they have a Discord, obviously. They do have a Blue Sky, which I will be linking to instead of the bird app, because ill. And all my links will be linked down in the description as well. My Ko-fi in case you want to support me, my Throne in case you want to buy me a book or something random. People are donating for the hyena plush, which, I mean, thank you, but it doesn't exist anymore. You could technically still donate, and it looks like they're gonna like recreate the hyena plush along with some of the other ones. But if it were to get funded, I don't know what would happen. So like some of the money is just sitting there. I think that I can actually stop the funding, and I would just get it, and then like it would just be held by Throne. And like if they make the new one, then I would just put it towards the new one, I guess. That might be what happens. I don't know. Anyways, but yeah, so what else? What else? My train of thought derailed. Throne. Actually, I guess that's it. Yeah, so I guess that's it for now, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.